Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and check it out, I got a couple of Japanese GameCube Game Boy players that we're going to clean up and restore and hopefully continue to get working, because I already know they work. But in the event that you're here because you have a GameCube, you have a Game Boy player, and it's not reading games, this hopefully will help you fix that. But first, before we go into anything, this is the absolute most important piece of information. Do you have this disc? Are you here because your Game Boy player is not working and it's like, oh, Adam, the GameCube, I have it on and everything and it seems fine, but I put Game Boy games in there and it's not running. Do you have this disc? Because if you don't have this disc, this thing is little more than a coaster. It does absolutely nothing. It is a stand at that point without this software. This is the North American version of the software. You can also use the Japanese version. I'm sure I know there's European version of software too. I don't have that. But this device, this piece of hardware is actually region-free, despite the fact that the GameCube is not. So, like I said, these are Japanese. And I have mostly North American GameCubes. You just connect them. As long as you can use the North American software and the North American console with the Japanese device, and it works just fine. But again, this is paramount. You absolutely need this. So, assuming you're good at that point, what we're going to do is actually clean these things up and restore them, make them look better, but also hopefully clean contacts and stuff like that, and get your Game Boy player running, provided that the software is not the issue. So if that's all you care about and that's why you're here, you feel free to skip to this time code. Otherwise, I have a little bit more to say on these things, in particular before we go to that. Okay, you're still here. Awesome. Now, so these things, I picked them up in Japan at Super Potato, which is a very infamous retro game store chain that exists over there. I did an entire video on Super Potato kind of talking about why I ended up getting these, but the long and the short of it is I saw them in a junk bin. And they were basically $4 a piece. Now that's awesome because, first of all, Game Boy players, I never see them over here unless they're attached to a GameCube already. And on top of that, the only one we got in North America was the black one. I'm not sure about Europe. I know you guys got the black one, but I don't know what other colors you potentially got. Maybe some limited edition ones or whatever. But they got these regular at retail. They also got the Orange Spice one at retail, which I did not find in that junk bin anyway. And so they were $4 each. They were labeled as non-working, which is actually why you see this like giant outline here on this thing. That was tape, basically. And so I decided, what the hell, for $4 I'm going to take that risk. And I got them back here and they immediately worked. Like there was nothing wrong with them at all. The only reason they were selling them so cheap is because they didn't have the software. So again, they were basically just stands for the GameCube. They don't do anything at that point. So since I know they work, I'm going to just clean them up and hopefully that helps you. So for the purposes of this video, there's absolutely no reason to do both of these at the same time. So I'll just put the silver one off to the side and we'll focus on the purple one. Now, in order to get into the device, you will first need a game bit. This is a special type of screwdriver, rolled specifically with a specific special head that you use to remove the screws, because Nintendo is very paranoid about people getting into their consoles, so they use special screws. Naturally, people decided, well, fuck you, I'm going to make my own screwdriver. So that's exactly what happened. It has 8 screws on the top. There's nothing on the bottom. There is nothing on the bottom you have to care about. Every single point of entry is on the top. So go ahead and proceed to remove all 8 of those screws. Alternatively, I have heard you can use a Bic pen, B-I-C. It's a French type of pen. They sell them everywhere. They're very common. I've heard you can try to use that in lieu of one of these, but I've also heard a lot of horror stories about them breaking and not really working. I wouldn't recommend that. Spend a couple bucks, get yourself a game bit. You'll need it for the future. Once you have your 8 screws out, it's time to take it apart. Now, there will be some resistance from this part here, but basically all you do at that point is you just take this thing apart. You just kind of wedge your fingers in here and just work your way around. The edges are all around this thing, and it should just basically pop off. There's really not much to this, and bam, see, there you go. Now this is just a piece of plastic. There's nothing else to this, so you can use soap and water and scrub this up, get it nice and clean. But over here we have the board. Now there's a little more to this, not much. There are 11 screws around the edges of this thing, and they're all Phillips head screws, no fancy game bits or anything like that. So you just go ahead and remove all 11 of those screws and we'll move on to the next part. At this point, you're going to basically just take the board out. Now the only thing kind of worth noting is you're going to see, those clasps that hook it onto the GameCube are basically underneath this thing. So when you lift it up, those are going to kind of remain there, which is normal, it's what you want. And there's also this other piece of RF shielding underneath you have to make note of right there. Just kind of keep it all together in one set, but that one might fly off on you. But basically hold this and put it off to the side. And then over here, take out these two rods, whatever you want to call them. And then you will notice the only part of this that is even kind of challenging. Now it kind of blends in on this particular unit because it's purple, but you'll see there is an eject mechanism. Now the eject mechanism needs to come out. So you can pop it out of here on this side, that's no problem, but you have this spring over here. Now this is the only part of that when we put this back together that might be kind of annoying. You'll see right now that the spring is basically hooked around one side of plastic on the eject mechanism and on this side. Now that's what of course creates the pressure to allow the eject mechanism to work. You basically have to slide it off either one of those and don't let the spring fly off and lose it, but you're just going to kind of remove it from either one, it doesn't matter, and then you'll get the piece out just like that. I got it out of both of them. And then once you do that, put it off to the side and take, of course, this piece of plastic out of there, which is, you know, just a piece of plastic. So with that, I will take these 3 pieces of plastic, scrub them all up, soap, water, all that fun stuff, and then show you the results. So I've washed them, as you can see. Now, I didn't intend to show you the silver one, but there is a reason I'm doing this. So if you're at this point where the soap, you've cleaned these up with soap and water and stuff, and you're seeing, like, for example, on this purple one, there's a bunch of scuffs and stuff like that, that's something that's not going to come out with soap and water. So for that, I would actually recommend this. This is Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser. This is a product where you basically, it's kind of like a fine sandpaper. You basically use it and just kind of rub over the area and get the scuff mark out. Like let's take this one, for example, right there, right? So I go like this on it, and it will basically just buff that right out of the plastic. Now you have to be, I say this a lot, but you have to be careful with this stuff because it will take off things like stickers or logos or anything that's like that. So you just want to get it over, you know, nice solid pieces of plastic. The reason I have the silver one out here though is it's kind of a special exception. Even though it has scuffs on it, I can't do that to it for a very specific reason. The silver one is not naturally that color. It's not the color of the plastic, that is paint. For whatever reason, Nintendo used paint instead of actual plastic in that color. I don't know why. So what that means is if you try to do that, it's going to take the paint off. You can see an example of it here. For whatever reason, this is where this device, the eject mechanism, is. They didn't spray paint or whatever that part of the plastic, so you can see the actual natural color of it. So unfortunately, you can't scuff the silver one, but the purple one, the black one, the orange one, there might be other limited edition ones. I'm not sure. I maybe wouldn't do it to those. But the purple one and the black one for sure are fine. I'm sure the orange one would be as well. So anyway, I'm going to proceed to do that to all these various scuff marks and kind of make sure get some extra moisture on there. Like that while you're doing it. It's usually better with a little bit of water. And then after that, it's going to leave some dust and stuff on there, but I will go ahead, rinse it up with soap and water again, get all the dust off, and we will take a look at it. I have done a bunch of de-scuffing. Now there are still some on there, to be honest with you. There's a couple of little ones that were kind of harder to get to. It's never going to be perfect, but the big ones are gone, which is great. There were some really bad ones too, like ones where there was like a big chunk of silver paint on the back. I think it had probably, you know, hit or impacted one of those silver Game Boy players at some point, and obviously there was a transference of paint there. But for the most part, the scuffs are gone. On the top part, there was really only one bad one. It was like right around there, and I got rid of it. So at this point, I'm going to put these pieces off to the side so that they can dry, and obviously we'll put the device together in a little bit. But right now, we're going to bring in the board right here. And don't forget about this little bastard piece of RF shielding. This kind of goes out in front here. This will just pop off. This is actually very irritating. But anyway, so you have this device, right? Now, we're going to clean this up a little bit because this is, if you have the Game Boy Player software, if your GameCube is reading it, and you put games in and it's still not reading games, this is likely what you need to pay attention to the most. We need to clean this. So the first thing we're going to do is clean this area right here. This is the slot that connects to the GameCube. Odds are there's probably not a contact issue, but nevertheless we'll take care of it. Now, in order to do that, we're going to just do this kind of like we would a cartridge console. We will take some Windex, or this is window lean in certain parts of the world, and you take a Q-tip just like this, nothing special, just, you know, get some on there, and just kind of go back and forth on the contacts, just a little light rubbing there on both sides, just to kind of get, you know, some of the grime or dirt out of there. Now, there is some, admittedly, there's not that much, but, you know, again, mine wasn't having problems, yours might be. So then you flip it around and you take the dry side and you go in there and you make sure you get excess moisture out of there. But, yeah, really all that's going to do is just remove dirt and grime that could be possibly causing a contact issue in there. But, yeah, that should be good to go at that point. So, there's only two other spots that kind of matter. There is the expansion port for the Game Boy player, which was rarely ever used. And then there's this, which of course is the Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. Now this is obviously the most important. You can clean this port in here if you want to. There's not really much to do with it. I would just take like a Q-tip and just kind of get just a little bit, you know, in there and kind of clean it a little. I mean, there's not going to be much happening there, and honestly, it really won't even matter. But yeah, there's a little bit of dirt removed. But again, this is the important one right there. So for all intents and purposes, this is a Game Boy Advance. This is a Game Boy slot. You would treat it like you would that. You just have to clean the cartridge contacts. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm going to use, personally, a cartridge cleaning kit. Now, these are borderline impossible to find these days, so I don't blame you if you can't, and I'm kind of amazed that nobody makes these anymore, because you would think it'd be kind of perfect. But you basically take... Well, in this case, it actually comes with one designed for the original Game Boy, and the original Game Boy works in this, so it's kind of perfect. But basically, all you do in this case is you would take some Windex again and get it onto the edges of this, and then you just kind of stick it in the cartridge slot and put it in a couple of times. You know, put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. You get the idea. And basically what that'll do is any dirt or, you know, grime that's on there will be transferred to this, and then you'll take this, clean this, and you'll get the excess dirt off. Now if I kind of like rub my finger on it, we'll see if any real dirt came off of it. I mean, there's a little, not much, but granted, I'm going to keep doing this for a little bit. Now I realize that most people do not have this. Most people do not have a cartridge cleaning kit. They're, like I said, hard to find. So there is an alternative, but I don't know what else to suggest for you, but I don't really recommend this. You could go out and you could pick up some sort of junk game, like a sports game, a Barbie dance game, or whatever the hell is in the bargain bin. And you take that cartridge and you clean the cartridge, you put a lot of excess like moisture on it. This is a game we're talking you don't care if it survives or not. You do that, and then you kind of use the cartridge as the cartridge cleaning kit. It will not be as good, and it's not really the best of ideas, but it's certainly better than sticking other random things in there. So that's an option. It's just not plan A. But anyway, either way, do what you got to do a few times, and then make sure that any excess moisture out of there is removed, generally with compressed air or with some sort of air machine, which I've shown in other videos, although I don't have it on me at the moment. Do not blow in there. Don't do that. That's just creating another problem. I thought I'd actually go ahead and show you what these things are. The Data Vac electric duster. This thing's fucking badass. So basically, you would just take it and go in here and get excess moisture out. This is going to be loud. I probably lowered the volume of that in editing just to let you guys know, because it's pretty loud. But basically that's all you would do is just go ahead and do that to get excess moisture out. And then at that point, just kind of put it off to the side, and we sit and we play the waiting game while we let the other pieces of plastic dry as well. Plastic is completely dry, so I'm going to start putting this thing back together. I took the first step already, just because it's kind of hard to do at this particular angle. But basically this sliding piece, the eject mechanism, you just slide it over this and kind of feed it through over here. You'll get it. It's real easy. And then you put the spring into place, and the spring just kind of pops over that side and pops over that side, and you're good. Like I said, it's not hard. It's just that doing it at this particular angle is just too challenging. You wouldn't even see it anyway. So now it's time to do the next step, which is to take those these like two metal rods basically, and then you kind of sit them into this hole here and this hole back here. Then you grab your board like this, and don't forget this little bastard piece. You'll hate it too. Trust me, you will hate this piece if you try to put this thing back together. And you sit it like this, okay? So that the like this, the two edges go underneath these 2 points, and the holes right there face outward, so that the solder basically can sit there. And then you basically put it into place by sitting. You'll hold. I recommend holding that part of the shielding, and then kind of sitting it over the two little rods you just put in there. Getting those through, and that'll give it a little bit of stability, not much to be honest with you. And then you start to sit it down into place, and it'll kind of plop over a few spots in the back. There's a couple of plastic spots back here. You see one, there's one right there, and there's one right there, and there's one right there, and it'll fit all over all of those. And then down here in the front, assuming you took care of that little piece correctly, you'll be able to see right through, just like I've been able to do. And at that point, you will connect your 11 screws. Now there are 4 spots here where you don't put screws. These 2 spots right here, as well as this spot, and if memory serves, let's do a double check right there. This one. So don't put screws in these 2 spots, this spot, or this spot. But these 2 spots right here, you do put screws on, and then from here all the way around to there. Okay? As you can see, it is back together now. So the only real step left is to put this on. So in order to do that, you kind of want to slide it over the mechanism here and then make sure those 2 little rods just kind of pop through, which really should be relatively easy. And you just fidget, and there you go. Comes right through, no problem. So at that point, there's of course the 8 game bits, which you're going to put right back into place. Okay, and it is back together. Now obviously it's not perfect. You can see the areas where we did some buffing like that, but we're going to try and work on that now. We're going to bring out a nice shine to this thing. Granted, it's kind of pointless because you almost never see it. You really only see the outside edges when it's installed, but nevertheless, let's make it look nice. Let's know that it looks nicer. So what we're going to do is just take some pledge. Now this is just a shining product basically. This is called Pronto in certain parts of the world. I have orange pledge. It's highly recommended to use this. Don't use things like moisturizing pledge. I've heard that actually causes some problems. This is just regular, basically. So just spray some on a paper towel and just kind of wipe it down like this and do a nice coat of it basically on all sides, the top, the bottom, you know, the front, etc. And then we'll let it dry and take a look at it. And there we have it. They are all done, and I think they look pretty good. I mean, all things considered. I mean, they were in much worse condition than they are now. They're much better. I mean, not perfect, obviously. There's only so much you can actually do, especially with this one because it's painted on. But yeah, definitely awesome. Now I already know they work, so I'm not going to bother with that. But yeah, it's definitely cool to have them because, of course, they look better with the appropriate GameCube. You know, with the silver GameCube and obviously, as well as the purple GameCube, they really just match better. And if you're ever in the situation where you can get these for cheap, provided you already have the Game Boy Player software, highly recommended, provided you have multiple GameCubes, because, you know, they just look better with a set. And I just got kind of lucky, I guess, because, yeah, they were cheap over there. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys if you have one of these, or just to see a teardown, because that was another thing I noticed. There were almost no teardowns of this thing on YouTube, so cool to check that out. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all later.